I guess we'll start with the LA Times article, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. Why don't you go ahead and lay it out while I look that up, and I'll tell you when I'm ready.
Well, I can honestly say it kind of shocked me. I figure if it shocked me, there's got to be some people out there that don't know about what's going on. That is, the state's definitely created some incentives for cities to build more housing with the acknowledgement that we are short on housing, and it's a big part of our cost of housing. And we're just trying to create more stable environments. And really, only more housing is going to do that. Or people leaving the city, one of the two. So the state has created incentives to distribute funds to various cities. But the cities need to show that they've created the path to build more housing. And at this point, LA has not proven to the state, or they have not created the adjusted zoning to make it clear that there's many units that can be built and create a denser city that is expected to happen. And if so, then the funds coming our way from the state are at risk if it doesn't get done.
Well, it's no excuse, but certainly LA is the biggest city in in California rather, and it's got a big challenge ahead of itself. But it needs to get it done. So we're going to talk about the challenge here through an LA Times article, and then we're going to pull back and we're going to look at SB 9. And Darren, what is SB 9 in just a number of sentences?
Again, state budget bill 9. It's allowing residential single split and make basically all single units. Done, I believe, originally in the state of Oregon. So it pretty much eliminates single family zoning. Although some independent cities have tried to curtail it with additional limitations. I don't think the state's very happy about that. But in the end, they're really trying to loosen up the standards and create more opportunities to build housing.
Sounds good to me. One thing that does not sound good, and I want you to check on it, is, a couple of weeks ago we had that lag, and there was that, I think you were on a, not the line, not the internet line, but an extension. Could you check that?
No, I'm good, man.
You're good. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, then we'll keep rolling then. Okay. Well, look, so this is LA Times. I think this was a week ago, and it's entitled, LA must add more than 250,000 homes to zoning plan by October. State rules. All right. So, dated February 24th. Los Angeles must rezone to accommodate an additional 250,000 new homes by mid-October after state housing regulators rejected the city's long-term plan for growth. The likelihood that LA will be able to accomplish in months a task that would normally take several years is very low, but the cost of failure could be high, experts say. If city leaders do not fix the housing plan or complete the rezoning by the new deadline, they could lose access to billions of dollars in affordable housing grants, officials with the State Department of Housing and Community Development said in a letter this week. Without the money, the production of new housing for low-income and homeless residents throughout LA would take a massive hit at a time when more than 41,000 people are homeless, and soaring rents and the COVID-19 pandemic are making it harder for Angelenos to stay in their homes. Gustavo Velasquez, director of the State Housing Department, praised the city's efforts to develop a plan that welcomes new housing, promotes the construction of low-income apartments, and ensures protections against displacement of residents. But he said the city hasn't done enough to comply with new, stricter state laws designed to promote greater development across California. Currently, just 7 local governments in Southern California have state-approved housing plans. Another 190 are now out of compliance, state officials said, and they face the same funding and rezoning restrictions that LA does. Given the city's sheer size, it's unlikely LA could meet the rezoning requirements under such a tight deadline. This is the most densely populated city in the state, Velasquez said. It's a lot of work. To be perfectly honest, I don't know how anybody could think that the rezoning could be done between now and October. State officials have applauded the city's intentions to reverse historic patterns of development and rezone wealthier, lower density communities, such as those on the west side and in the San Fernando Valley. to allow for more low-income housing. But they said LA's plans doesn't demonstrate that it has sufficient strategies to invest in new parks or economic development in poor neighborhoods, among other concerns. The finding comes after years of contention among Governor Gavin Newsom, state lawmakers, and cities across California over growth. Newsom and some legislators have argued that local restrictions on development are a key reason why housing costs are so high in California, causing crushing rent burdens and rising homelessness. In recent years, they've passed new laws allowing for some affordable housing projects to get built without local review and fourplex dwellings to be built on land previously reserved only for single-family homes. The state also has attempted to strengthen a 50-year-old law that requires every local government to prepare a plan every 8 years for new growth to meet projected population increases and account for other factors such as overcrowding. That indicates a need for more development. The process, known formally as the housing element, doesn't require local governments to build or approve new housing, instead mandating that they must zone sufficient land to meet the state's housing goals. Until recently, many cities skirted the state's housing law with little consequence, but the new rules have substantially increased the number of new homes cities must allow. In Southern California alone, local governments must plan for the construction of 1.3 million new homes by 2029, triple the number required during the previous cycle. And cities must show that the properties they're targeting for new development are more likely to have housing built on them. Before the housing department's decision this week, the city of Los Angeles had seemed to be in lockstep with the state's efforts. Mayor Garcetti and city council members had pushed successfully in fall 2019 for LA and other communities near the coast to plan for more housing rather than continue to push sprawl further into the Inland Empire. Experts have widely praised the city's efforts for identifying realistic sites suitable for housing construction rather than attempting to shirk that responsibility. Our housing element is the most ambitious and aggressive in the state as part of a new regulatory process with unprecedented housing goals. And the mayor is proud of the work city staff have done to bring it to this point, Alex Commissar, a Garcetti spokesman, said in a statement. Nevertheless, the failure to win state approval of the city's plan could have serious consequences. Under the law, Los Angeles is no longer eligible for money from many state affordable housing programs. That includes one that in January delivered more than $125 million to support the city low-income housing developments. Both state and city officials said that the city should be able to make changes to its housing plan by May. Then the next round of state housing funding becomes available. So they don't expect the city to lose out on money in the short term. But the rezoning deadline poses a far more difficult challenge. LA must complete efforts to rezone for 255,000 new homes by mid-October, rather than the 3 years it would have otherwise had to do it. City and state leaders say that doesn't seem remotely possible. The process ordinarily requires lengthy environmental reviews, and the LA City Council would have to approve the rezoning plan after all of that in just 8 months. This would all happen amidst a mayoral election, as well as city council races. Rezoning the entire city in 1 year is infeasible, and we don't believe that penalty was meant to apply to the jurisdictions pursuing compliance in good faith, Commissar said, adding that the mayor planned to work with Newsom and state legislators to address the issue. Gosh, this is a long article. The statement's rejection of LA's housing plan could backfire, said Chris Elmendorf, a UC Davis law professor who has been following the housing element process. Lumping LA in with cities that are actively trying to evade the law could delegitimize the housing department's actions, he said, and causing the courts to allow local governments to ignore the rezoning development or deadlines if they are determined to be impossible to meet. This is politically bonkers, Elmendorf said. But Paavo Munkinen, an associate professor of urban planning and public policy at UCLA, said the state's move was justifiable given the city's rejection of even more assertive state-led rezoning proposals in favor of greater local control over where growth should go. Allowing more housing more quickly will benefit Angelenos, he said. City officials, Munkinen said, shouldn't drag their feet on taking the necessary actions to allow more housing and should act at the pace that a crisis demands. Earlier this month, the Southern California Association of Governments, a public agency representing 19 million residents in LA County and 5 neighboring counties, sent a letter to state lawmakers asking for a legislative committee hearing to address the timelines. Velasquez said the state's aggressiveness in pushing cities to comply with their deadlines shows that after decades, California is taking the planning process as seriously as its housing problems require. It's showtime, he said. We just want to make sure that people are doing what they're supposed to do and taking this crisis that we're facing really seriously. Huh. All right. All right, man. What do we got?
Time to unpack.
Yeah.
Sure. It's a fantastic article. I know one of the authors is a Echo Park resident.
Oh,
and very connected to planning. So, I like the way he broke it down. He talked about how, but we're not going to force we're going to force a number on you, but you choose what to do locally with that. You choose how to rezone. You define where you expect this house community in the city of Los Angeles. And sometimes a couple communities are lumped together. They review this typically every 10 years and resubmit, which is more in different areas. And
well, Darren, we cannot hear you, and you've frozen. All right. Well, why don't you repeat what you just said, like last 5 seconds?
All right. Well, sure. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you. Yeah.
All right. I will go reset my thing because it looks like I have 100%, at least on my computer. It's telling me.
Yeah.
So community plans are done every 10 years that are supposed to determine what direction areas go in, where to upzone, where to downzone, what type of environment you're looking to have. The reality is this is done on a hyper local level, and I've been involved in that process in the Silver Lake Echo Park community. Those two are a combined community plan. But what happens is
where does it stop?
Well, the more local you get,
the
more people want to NIMBYism. Simply put, people want to say, put density over there, put density over here. I will say Echo Park and Silver Lake are ahead of the curve on that. Although there's a ton of residents that don't want more density, and all day long they're pushing back on development. They did embrace a lot more low-income housing projects, and we have more than our fair share of bigger projects in our communities, and we don't push them aside. We just send them to typically with denser neighborhoods, and we've developed a ton of and it makes sense with our proximity to downtown.
Got it.
So we've taken our fair share of that. I don't know. There's still more density available. Like, what example is Sunset Boulevard is zoned for like 3 stories. Like, it's freaking Sunset Boulevard. It might even be zoned for two stories. You've got a 7-story Citibank building, which recently sold.
Right.
But everything is so short, and that's a clear example of, well, this is a dense corridor. You should allow more density here. Why is this all 1 story?
Right.
That's an example of people from the community not wanting density.
Well, a similar example is, I know on Hillhurst, right? Pretty dense there, and I know there was a bit of a fight there between the council person who wanted to, get to 2nd or 3 stories there. And I don't know where it is now, but Hillhurst was another idea. For more density.
Yeah, and because mixed use is more embraced and has been for a decade now, at least, you can start in those commercial corridors. You can start getting 4 stories, commercial over 3 stories of apartments. And, seems appropriate. If you talk about like bigger plan, go to Stanford Into Valley, which was mentioned in that article. They basically laid out that whole community that way. A lot of the big buildings are on the major corridors, and then you get off those major corridors, and it's smaller single family zones once you get into the internal streets.
Right.
It seems like a logical way to do it. But the article also mentions how some cities are trying to avert it altogether. Beverly Hills isn't stepping up saying, Yes, I want my low income housing.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know, on Rodeo Drive.
yeah.
But even
Well,
smaller cities, same
yeah.
thing.
Well, I know we always talk about finding the middle. Where is that middle on this one?
So,
Do you have an idea? I mean, what does it mean? If you say Silver Lake and Echo Park are more
well,
progressive compared to the
they
rest of the
are.
city,
Sure.
what is,
The middle ends up being the state forcing something exactly like this. I don't because look, it's the reality. I don't have a lot of empathy for the city and the potential funds that are lost
Mhm.
because they need to get it done. It's something
Right.
they don't want to do. It's something their constituents will give them pushback on. So
Mhm.
they haven't done it. What happens in those situations is it goes up until the last minute. They
Mm.
cry wolf. Don't take it away. Oh, we'll fix it. Well, why didn't you just do it
Right.
earlier and
Right.
like make the hard decisions earlier? And
Right.
well, you know what? I think in reality, we'll get an extension, and they'll figure it out. But it just kind of pisses me off. Just get it
Right.
done in time,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Seriously. So,
All right. Well, it sounds like to be continued. We'll follow this story as we go. But one of the elements here that we're talking about is SB 9, State Bill 9, that gives residential lots the ability to split and become 2 units. Does it even go up to 4 now?
oh, it does. So you can split the lots and put 2 units on each lot.
Wow. All right. So let me go ahead and share this. Hold on. Okay. And we'll just kind of read through it. SB 9, residential lot splits in 2 units. Expanding residential inventory by increasing unit allowances on single-family zoned residential properties. This is brought to us by our brokerage, Avenue 8, and also CAR, Legal Tools. California Senate Bill 9, effective January 1, 2022, allows 2 units on a lot zoned for single family, allows lot splitting a property zoned for single family into 2 parcels. There you go. Many exemptions. All right.
Right.
2 units on a single residential lot. So, urban areas, no demolition of housing if lower income, rent control, or rented in last 3 years. Property may not have been removed from rental under Ellis Act in last 15 years. And then no historic districts, no demolition of 25% or more of exterior existing walls, some exceptions. Wow. You got any comments on that? Seems like you're
Well,
walking through raindrops there.
they're trying to get people to do infill development rather than, for lack of a better term, clear cutting, right?
Mm.
When you're trying to navigate an existing space and make the most of it, you don't want to go in there and just like demo it all and build it all new. So they don't want people to come in and buy small properties and just demo them,
Mm-hmm.
add more. I mean, that's happening. It's happening. I've seen it multiple times on Echo Park Ave, which I drive down frequently. And it's a commercial zoning there, and it again probably is more appropriate. But what used to be a small 2-bedroom, 1-bath house is now the lot is maxed out, side to side, front to back, 2 structures, 2 duplexes,
Got it.
and they're 3 stories high. It's tall.
Right.
It's dense.
All right. So it continues 2 units on single lot local agencies. So local agencies must allow 800 square feet minimum for each unit, not require additional setbacks for existing structure, not require more restrictive parking than 1 off-street per unit, no parking required if near car share or half-mile of transit corridor or major transit stop. Prohibit short-term rentals. And then local agencies may prohibit ADU if also lot split.
Right. So it's very interesting when you deal with hillside communities because there are a lot of nuances.
Mm-hmm.
Probably the biggest issue that people are having with all this is no parking required. Like Echo Park Ave there's a bus line. It's not a heavily traveled bus line, but because there's a bus line there, no parking required. And that's what a lot of people are doing with ADU additions as well. So
And
streets
Darren,
are just filling up more.
I'm trying to remember, and that's is that dash only going up Echo Park, or is it also
Dash
It's
only.
just dash only. Got it. All right.
Yeah.
Residential lot splits. Lots must be approximately equal, no greater than 60-40 split, each at least 1,200 square feet. No demolition or alteration if lower income, rent control, rented in last 3 years. Property may not have been removed from rental under LS Act in last 15 years. No historic districts not previously subdivided. Okay. Residential lot splits, local agencies. Local agencies must not require more restrictive parking than one off-street per unit. No parking required if near car share or half-mile transit corridor or major transit stop. I feel like I'm repeating myself. Prohibit short-term rentals. Require applicant to certify they will occupy for 3 years as principal residence. So require applicant to certify they will occupy for 3 years as principal residence. So is that speaking to a developer or trying to stay away from developers?
That's right, but that's trying to turn individual owners into developers. And some people have jumped into that, and that's happened maybe in the past 5 years with ADUs. Will be a traditional owner who never thought about building out has converted to an ADU. This is trying to take that to the next level rather than just sending all the profits to developers.
Oh, that's good. I like that. Okay, local agencies may require access to public right-of-way. Okay, and then it goes to exemptions: prime farmland, wetlands, very high fire hazard severity zones, hazardous waste sites, earthquake fault zones, unless complies with seismic standards, and that's nice. Special flood hazard area and regulatory floodway under FEMA, unless meets federal qualifying criteria. Conservation land, habitat for protected species, conservation easement land. And then special note, coastal commission jurisdiction still applies. So that's what I was talking about earlier, Darren. So what? So these areas are exempted then from this higher density?
They are, yes. And they'll come up with their own guidelines on how to address them. I don't know what those answers are. They're not communities we typically serve. So.
Yeah. Okay, and then it goes into additional resources if you want to check it out. If you do want to check this out, I do have the slide presentation, and I can send it off to you. So just let me know. Okay, so anything else about SB 9? An opportunity for some, it sounds like, right?
It is an opportunity, and I think. Can you hear me?
Yeah, it's a little fuzzy, but keep going.
Joe.
Yeah, keep going.
Okay. Yeah. All right. When you start showing the MLS, I'm going to reset my modem, so I'll be gone for a moment. But I will say, it took some time to start seeing ADUs like become mainstreamed and everybody talking about them. I think we're going to have the same effect here. I think this is going to affect a lot of people in the long run, but it might be, 2 to 3 to 5 years where this is a topic of conversation at every party, at every event. Talking about what we're doing with your assets and if you're considering doing this to your house.
Got it. Okay. So progress goes slowly. Got it. All right.